Welcome into this week's edition of Texas versus the SEC. My name is Gerry Hamilton. That's CJ Vogel. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Texas UL Monroe, give our prediction scores, but then we're going to get into Texas by getting to Tennessee at Oklahoma, look at Florida at Mississippi State. Wow, yawn. That was a yawn, guys, and some other SEC games. Before we do that, though, I need to tell you about my bookie. This episode of On Texas Football, Texas versus the SEC, is brought to you by the folks at MyBookie. Make sure you're in the game with MyBookie. Play any matchup, hundreds of college player props, and more. Take a look at that. Arch Manning, how many yards is he going to pass for in his first start? How many points is Texas going to score in that game? With all the excitement of the season, make sure you're in the game with MyBookie. Bet any matchup, hundreds of college player props, and take advantage of weekly risk-free bets. The best part is you can do it all anytime, anywhere, straight from your phone. Visit mybookie.ag and use promo code ONTEXAS to get started. It's MyBookie's 10th year anniversary, and they're rolling out the red carpet for the bettors. Big bet, big confidence with risk-free Thursdays. If your boosted bet doesn't hit, you'll get your money back. Weekly, no sweat, win-win bets all season long. And sign up now to cash in on double deposit bonus. It's a no-brainer. Double the cash in your account before you ever place your first bet. But do not wait, because it's only available for a very limited time. For those of you who've been playing with MyBookie, they've got something for you too. A brand new loyalty rewards program in MyBookie Plus. It's simple. The more you play, the more you earn. And as you progress through the tiers, unlock exclusive promotions, epic giveaways, and cash back in your account. Thank you very much to MyBookie. All right, CJ, Texas, UL Monroe. Sark announced it. Finally, we knew it, but we're waiting on Sark when he was going to announce it. Arch Manning starts his first college start against UL Monroe. Obviously, hey, it's like starting an in-state game for him. General Booty, the quarterback for UL Monroe, also a Louisiana boy up from the Shreveport area. So it's two Louisiana guys playing quarterback in DKR Saturday. We haven't really given prediction scores, so I'll go first before we get into the SEC games. I'm going 48-3 Texas. So I guess that means Texas is going to cover the 44.5, in my opinion. But I think the big thing is UL Monroe is going to have a tough time scoring the football and driving the football field against Texas.
Yeah, I'm going to go 55-6. I think that maybe late you see some field goal attempts. I think you'll see UL Monroe be more content to put the kicker on the field versus what we saw against Colorado State and UTSA, where, they wanted to go for it on fourth down, maybe find the end zone to get some confidence there. I think you'll want to just get points on the board if you're UL Monroe this game. Big difference in this game for me is that passing defense, which has only allowed 167 yards per game, Gerry, for UL Monroe, they'll be tested. And why? Because they won't have that opportunity to play complementary defense as we've seen so far with their defensive front. Obviously, pulling is a great edge that they have up there for ULM. 40 pressures so far through 2 games. I don't think that they're going to be getting too much pressure going against Kelvin Banks and Cam Williams and the rest of that Texas offensive line. That allows Texas to get down the field vertically, those routes to develop, and Arch Manning to find guys down the field. I think they score 50 again. That'll be 3 out of 4 games in which Texas would have put a 50-burger on the board. Do that at home under the lights. You'll put another show and spectacle on for the fans and recruits on campus this weekend.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that, so we're not going to continue to beat a dead Warhawk. We're going to move on. So we're going to talk now about number 6 Tennessee at number 15 Oklahoma, and it's time for us to make some picks on that. Bobby Burton's on record. He's going 42-7, by the way. No takebacks, Bobby. It's done. All right, so Tennessee at Oklahoma, one of the top 3 games in college football this week, and I would say USC at Michigan's another one, maybe one other. This is a huge game for Oklahoma. Now, the injury report came out, CJ, last night. Nick Anderson's going to play. Looks like Andrew Anthony will give it a go. That's his first game back off the ACL. Offensive lineman, Gary Hatchett's out. They got some other injuries. Jake Taylor hadn't been able to play much this year. Hickman got hurt in the opener. You see down there Troy Everett. They have injuries on the offensive line. So those guys aren't going to be playing at 100%. The big one that's out for me is Gentry Williams, the corner. Yeah. He's the best corner for Oklahoma. He's the fastest corner for Oklahoma. And going up against this Tennessee team That feels like a major loss in this game.
Yeah, I certainly agree, especially when you look at what Tennessee's been able to do so far this year. We've talked about Nico and his ability to get the ball out on the perimeter. And more so than that, the way that offense spreads you out, you need guys defensively that can cover a lot of space and do so very reliably. So that's going to be an issue for Oklahoma. And of course, with the way that Tennessee's been running the football as well, you'd like to have kind of that confidence that you don't need to cheat a safety out wide. You don't need to spread the box out too much because guess what? Tennessee has the second best rushing attack this entire season, right? They average north of 350 yards per game. That's second best in the country. So you look at what Oklahoma has been priding itself on. Its playmakers at all three levels, right? You got Dominic Williams up front. You got Danny Stutzman in the middle, Billy Bowman, Peyton Bowen back deep. They're going to be tested because they're going to be stretched out because of those wide splits. And Tennessee, I mean, listen, I know you've talked about it before, Gerry, but when you have that dominant rushing attack and a quarterback that can get the ball everywhere on the football field with that big arm and accurately, it's a tough time to defend. And I think right now that Tennessee is going to find a lot of ways to put up points.
Yeah, the tough thing, too, for Oklahoma, this is a tough matchup for Brent Venables. I really think his linebackers are dang good. And he's increased the size on the defensive front to get ready for the SEC. The problem with Brent Venables versus Tennessee on the surface is he can't really load the box and disguise all those blitzes in this game like he's really, really good at. The teams that have been most successful, obviously Georgia has the personnel to do it. They've played with a light box against Tennessee. They've played with 5.5 defenders in the box. And that's the way you have to do it to be successful against Tennessee. So that I'm not sure Oklahoma, they like to play the big linebackers. I'm not sure how it's going to work for them playing 6.5, 7 in the box against Tennessee, because that's not where the teams have had the most success against the Vols. The other thing that's going to make it tough on Oklahoma is Nico's a good athlete. Now, I do say this about Nico. He threw 2 picks against NC State. He's not there as a passer. So if you can force him into some situations, you might be able to get a turnover with a secondary that's got sticky hands. But it's his athleticism in this game. And then the Tennessee offensive line, Oklahoma is much improved on the defensive front with Dominic Williams and Jaden Jackson, a freshman, 2 300-plus pounders. They're much better up front, no doubt about it. But Tennessee's offensive line negates that. This is the first team Oklahoma's played all year that can negate that strength for Oklahoma, which is their front 6. And that becomes the issue for the Sooners. And then with Gentry Williams out, what is your speed at corner? Because what Tennessee's going to do is they're going to run that ball at you inside, in between those hashes. And then they're going to try to get somebody vertical on you. And then to have the quarterback run they can mix in too. So it's a lot for Oklahoma and Brent Venables to slow down and game plan for, especially because it takes him out of what he ideally wants to do.
Yeah, another key point in this game that I wanted to touch on is Lance Hurd, starting left tackle for Tennessee, listed as questionable. I believe he's expected to play. Of course, this is a big road game for Tennessee. You're going to batten up whatever injuries you got and play if you're capable of it. And I expect him to play in this game, of course. But why is that important? Because we've talked about the ability for Tennessee to run the football. There's a moment in that Tulane game a week ago where Tulane had the football, Gerry, and looking to go up and take the lead late in that game against Oklahoma. And what happened? It was the edge rush by R. Mason Thomas that really shut down an entire drive. He had 2 sacks and a batted ball at the line of scrimmage, single-handedly stopping a Tulane possession. Most of that work came off that left edge as well. If Lance Hurd plays and you negate some of those early pressures for a young quarterback on the road under the lights, that's going to allow him to play with confidence. And that's a big, big moment. You don't want to be going into a road SEC game without your starting left tackle. That's for sure.
Yeah, and two other things. Oklahoma's ran a lot of twists and stunts up front. I'm not sure they do that against Tennessee. I think you got to play more straight up because Tennessee has run more counters this year. They've pulled more guys in the run game. So you can get caught up with your twists and your stunts very easily against Tennessee. They've added a little bit to their run game since Heupel got to Tennessee. The other thing, obviously the biggest thing in this game, I believe, is Oklahoma's offensive line. If it's anything like the first 3 games of the year, Tennessee this game could get ugly. That's going to be the key to me. Can Oklahoma's offensive line hold up at all? Because they can't just hand the ball off. They don't have a great running back. They have good players, but they don't have the difference maker types that they've had in some years past under Bob Stoops and in Lincoln Riley. They don't have those guys right now at running back. So they can't just turn around and hand it off and max deficiencies. Their deficiencies are glaring. First-year starting quarterback, trying to force wide receivers back. Are they 100% healthy? They already lost Farouk for the year. Then your running game isn't where Oklahoma fans are accustomed to seeing it under Bob Stoops. So your pass protection better be really good. And that is an issue. So what are you thinking score-wise for this, CJ?
I had 38-17. I think Tennessee comes away with the victory. I think that they just have too much of a balanced attack offensively, and I think there's just too many questions for Oklahoma offensively, starting with that offensive line. How do they continually keep Jackson Arnold upright and without pressure? I don't know, especially when you look at James Pierce, a guy who's atop of big boards for 2025 NFL draft off the edge. It's a tough first SEC game.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're going to have the same score. I was thinking 38-17 as well, so we're not copycats here, but that's what we're all thinking. 3-touchdown win by Tennessee. And honestly, I'll be the first to say this. If Oklahoma keeps it to 10 and loses by 10, I think they've had a pretty good day. I mean, I know they would lose the game, but that's actually could be deemed pretty good day for Oklahoma because the stars aren't aligning for them in this matchup right now. All right, let's look at Florida, Mississippi State. And the reason we're going to that next, and we're not going to touch on this very long because who wants to, is Mississippi State's the opponent for Texas next week, first SEC opponent. Florida has, so many guys out injured. It's like 10 that are listed as out. And one of those is Eugene Wilson, their best receiver. So whether it's Mertz, whether it's Lagway, they have injuries at wideout. And their offensive line is underperformed. And offensively, you're talking about the 72nd ranked offense in college football. Now, Mississippi State's 82nd, so I guess we're hammering the under on this, right? Florida only converts 27.6% on third downs. Now, they have played two real teams, Miami and Texas A&M, but 27.6, you're taking that. Is that your road show? That's not good, even against Mississippi State. So I don't know what to really expect from this game other than I'll say this. If Florida beats Mississippi State, Mississippi State's completely 1,000% reeling headed to Austin.
Yeah, 100%. Listen, you'd like to see Mississippi State put up a fight, but at the same time, they just hosted Toledo a week ago and didn't show anything that was worthwhile. In fact, I don't think you can find the tape of that game anywhere on YouTube, on ESPN. They wiped it clean from the internet. What will be interesting is how does Florida pass the football, right? You just talked about Eugene Wilson. He actually just had successful surgery on his meniscus. So there's doubts that he even plays against Texas later on this year as a result of that. Mississippi State, we knew it was going to be tough coming in. You returned 2 starters from a year ago. You come in with a brand new offensive staff. You come in with brand new head coach, coordinators on both sides, brand new quarterback, Blake Shapen. I know he has experience, but you don't have anything around him that helps distribute the football and make his life easier. I think Florida wins this game, Gerry, but I don't think this game is touching 40 points. I don't think that there's a shot, especially if it's just two ugly teams right now. They don't play for a lot. There's just not a lot of hope on either side.
Yeah, price of cowbells is going down in Starkville as we speak. This is a rough first year for Coach Levy. All right, let's take a look at Arkansas and Auburn next. Obviously, Arkansas rival, future opponent, but Arkansas at Auburn's interesting. Auburn changed quarterbacks last week. Went to Hank Brown, a kid from the Nashville area, Tennessee. Very slow release. Something to keep in mind there when Oklahoma comes to town in 2 weeks. And that's why we're talking about this from the Arkansas perspective. But then Oklahoma goes to Auburn. A&M also plays at Auburn later this year. So we'll be talking about Auburn plenty this year, even though they're on a Texas schedule. But Arkansas offensively, most improved offense in the country. Is that where we're at 3 games into it from a year ago?
Yeah. Them or Indiana, right? You look at them. And Arkansas, top 10 in total yards per game, and that's going on the road to play a top 25 Oklahoma State team. I like it. I like what I'm seeing from Petrino. I like what I see from Taylor Green. I mean, they're moving. And one thing that was the biggest glaring issue for me coming in, Gerry, was what is that offensive line going to look like? That was kind of the big calling card for Sam Pittman early in his career, right? He came from Georgia, was the offensive line coach there, takes over at Arkansas, and then all of a sudden the magic that was the offensive line just disappeared. He didn't have the talent, but he's gone out and addressed that. And all of a sudden you look at Jaquin Jackson averaging over 100 yards per game, thinking, okay, they're a dual balanced team when you add in the legs from Taylor Green, you add in the passing attack down the field to Andrew Armstrong as well. I like Arkansas. I don't know if I'm biting the cheese, if I'm chasing the rabbit down the hole here, but Arkansas on the road against the first-time starting quarterback. I know it's Jordan Hare. I know it's Auburn. Tough place to play. Give me the Pigs.
Yeah, man, and look, they already went on the road and put up 600 yards at Oklahoma State and had a game they thought they should have won that let it get away. It's a great motivation week for Sam Pittman. Let's come back and right those wrongs, go put up our yards, but win the game this time.
Absolutely.
I like Arkansas by double digits in this game, and I have a hell of a lot of respect for Auburn's home crowd, because it's the most underrated there in South Carolina in the country. That game, 2:30 p.m. on ESPN, by the way. Arkansas, 67.5% conversion rate on third downs. Something to keep in mind there for Arkansas as the season moves along. Now they're getting into SEC play. All right, let's hit on Bowling Green at Texas A&M. We got to do it. Big win last week at Florida. Everything's right in College Station again. SEC contenders. Look, this is a game. Boise State took Penn State to the wire. Then they had an off week preparing for A&M. Now, Bowling Green got banged up in that game, by the way. So I'm not sure how healthy they are, running back wise, a couple other positions. But I'm going to throw something out there on this. Is Bowling Green's 45th in offense in college football. That's after two games, but one of those games at Penn State. A&M is at 41% on third down conversion rate. Now, Marcel Reed, they have a playmaker at quarterback. I don't think they have a quarterback controversy. I think they have their starting quarterback. And that's going to carry some emotion with the fan base. CJ, what are your thoughts on this game? Because I think it's not a trap game for A&M. Because when you lose at home to Notre Dame, this isn't a trap game. But it's an interesting game because Bowling Green's already proven they can compete with a playoff contender.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a home game against a non-Power 4 team. A&M wins these, right? They win these type of games. And you see that with a 23 or 24-point spread, whatever it is. I'm with you, though. I think that Marcel Reed gives A&M a little bit more of an explosive offense. I think the numbers back that up pretty easily. He has 16 less attempts. He's got 25 more yards on the year. He's doubled up already the rushing attempts and yards from Connor Wakeman on the ground as well. You see the big plays there. And that was on the road in the swamp. That's not an easy place to play, even with how down Florida is this year and how, kind of the narratives about Florida being a dead team walking basically with Billy Napier at that, whatever. They went out and did it with a first-time starting quarterback in a big road game. It was impressive. This is a game for me, again, I thought that you showed some success of what that defense should be this year. You had the pick six from Bryce Anderson a week ago. This shouldn't be a game in which Bowling Green scores more than 20. And I know that they kept it close against Penn State. You mentioned that earlier. You're at home. This is a game in which you have momentum. You finally found something offensively that's consistently working, and you have a running quarterback that fits Colin Klein's scheme.
That's the big thing for me. He fits what Colin Klein wants to do, CJ.
Big thing for me is, does that defense continually improve day in and day out, week to week? That's where I'll be looking, because I do think that they found their quarterback for the season with Marcel Reed, because, again, and you'll hit on this, he just fits what he wants to do. Run the football and get the ball vertically down the field.
I mean, we talked about how young Avery Johnson kind of fit what Colin. Look at the athleticism at quarterback, the playmaking, even Howard at times at Kansas State under Klein. Marcel Reed is that guy. Of him and Connor Weigman, Marcel Reed fits the Colin Klein offense and what Colin Klein wants to do the most. It's not even close. And with an A&M offensive line that's still growing, having that off-schedule playmaker is huge. I mean, I just think that's huge in college football. If you're young on the offensive line or have to mask some deficiencies on the offensive line, having a playmaker at that position, the off-schedule plays, the plays with your feet, those plays are massive if your offensive line has some again, some deficiencies that need masked.
Gerry, that's what won Oklahoma the game a week ago. It was Jackson Arnold's ability to run the football. He had 94 rushing yards, and a lot of them came in the fourth quarter where he desperately needed to pick up chunk plays, move the chains, and run the clock.
Agree. So this game's 6:30. So what are we ESPN Plus game? I can guarantee you this: it won't be as much as viewed as the Arch Manning start on the Plus network. What are you thinking score wise on this game? You got anything? What do you say the line was on this game? 28?
Okay. 20, 23, 24. It's right in that range. It's below 25. So it's a big one. I'm expecting something in the range 35-10, 35-13. I don't know specifically if I had anything written down beforehand, but you should be able to score points. And this is an offense, again, in which you should be able to rely on your top-end defense. Nick Scourton, Bryce Anderson, Torian York. These guys need to come up to play to carry on that momentum for me to take them serious the rest of the season.
Yeah, so I'll go 34-17 A&M. I think they're going to win it, but not cover. That's a big number. I think Bowling Green's a competitive football team, and they come in with some belief. I think the A&M defensive line will be the difference in this game. All right, we're going to we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but Vanderbilt at Missouri, 3:15 ESPN SEC network, I believe is what that is. Missouri is converting 60% on third downs. Missouri's going to win this game, and I think this is going to be another game. Vanderbilt had a tough loss last time out at Georgia State. It's a pretty talented team, but Missouri's going to win this game, and I think they're going to do it rather handily. I think this is just a mismatch of skill players in this game with a third-year starting quarterback from Missouri.
Yeah, I think so, and it pains me to say, but the golden era for Vanderbilt football might have been short-lived about 2 weeks into this year, right? You lose to Georgia State. It's tough. Georgia State's they got a good program. They put out NFL level guys each year. You're an SEC team. You're Vanderbilt. And you're thought to be taking that next step. You come in with the big road victory week 1. You hold up your end of the bargain week 2, and then you fall flat week 3. Well, why am I to believe that all of a sudden you're going to be competitive again? I love Diego Pavia on the road against Missouri. I don't love Diego Pavia. Yeah. I'm going Missouri big. And again, I think Missouri kind of got slapped in the face a little bit a week ago, right? You win 27-21. It was a ranked game against Boston College, but at the same time, that game was really in your grasp for the majority of the second, third, and fourth quarters. What Boston College did late to make it close and only a 6-point game, I think was a good wake-up call for the Tigers and Drinkwitz. You can't take your foot off the pedal, right? And I think that's going to show up against Vanderbilt now that it's officially a conference SEC game. I think Missouri wins big.
The last game we're going to hit on, we're going to spend a lot of time on it, but we're just going to hammer the cover on this one, is Georgia Southern at Ole Miss. And on the surface, people are like, wow, 36 points. That's a lot. All right, well, Georgia Southern gave up 56 to Boise in week 1. And Ole Miss doesn't need Ashton Jeanty to put up 60. Ole Miss put up 40 at Wake Forest last week and shut it down. And Ole Miss and Wake Forest said, we're done with this. We'll cut you a check. That's the NIL day and age we're in. When somebody's just done a great work in the NIL and other programs like, nah, we're not doing this. Ole Miss, 36-point favorite, 6:45 p.m. SEC network. I like Ole Miss to cover this number. I'm just going to be real here.
Gerry, it feels too easy. And for that reason, I'm almost thinking, oh, maybe this game's much closer than, it's kind of that trap bet in my brain. That's how that works. But you've looked at what Ole Miss has been able to put out already this year, the way that they've scored and the way that they've prevented teams from scoring as well. I think they're only allowing 3 points a game or something silly like that this year. It's tough sledding if you're playing Ole Miss early this year and you don't have that speed to combat it. I'm with you, though. I don't know how this isn't a 40, 50-point win at home under the lights in Ole Miss.
I mean, look, you have a NFL quarterback. You have 2 NFL wideouts. You have an NFL tight end. Henry Parrish can make yards in bunches because of everything around him. Offensive lines improved. Defensive lines improved. Linebacker with Chris Paul is not the point guard. The Arkansas transfers improved. I think Ole Miss is a real football team this year. Now, they haven't played anybody. I mean, Wake Forest still a Power 4 team that was a bowl-level team with the last 4 years. But Nah, there's something about them. They're pretty good. If they're portal D line guys,
Yeah,
maximize this year in their contract year. Walter Nolan was throwing guys around last week. It was ugly on. If you go check Twitter, he looked like the guy that was ranked number 1 in the country for the first time. And I'm not talking about sacks and things. I'm just talking about the effect he had on the game. And then Princely, Umanamilan from Manor has a sack this year. If those two guys play at a high level, Ole Miss is actually a really, really good football team, in my opinion, and worthy, a bit worthy of their ranking.
Yeah, one note I wanted to add on the trench play. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the Washington transfers. You go out and you add a Pounds from North Carolina on that offensive line to protect Jackson Dart. Gerry, I put out a tweet earlier this week about Colin Simmons and his win rate in the SEC. And yeah, he's ranked 3rd so far. That's great. I put up the top 10. There are 3 Ole Miss players on this win rate percentage claim so far. Of course, Walter Nolan on the interior gets a lot of claim. Princely Umanamilan, Jared Ivey. He was an all-SEC guy a year ago. He's an NFL caliber guy. And then Perkins in the middle. I mean, really talented guy. There's depth there, high-end depth. And I think that, again, the trench play, you see all the shiny stuff with the interceptions, with the touchdowns, with the scores. The trench play will be what carries Ole Miss. And I think they're legit this year because of it.
Yeah, I think they actually have 4 pros on their defensive line.
Oof.
Jared Ivey, and I'll say this about Ivey. Of all the players that we sit there and listen to at SEC Media Days, he may have been most impressive. You would have thought you were listening to a quarterback. To say he's intelligent and he has a maturity about him and an understanding would be an understatement. That guy's a stud. He will play in the NFL. He'll be very popular with NFL personnel when he starts the interview process. CJ, I agree with that. They have four future NFL players on their
nice luxury. Yeah.
The last time Ole Miss was really, really good, what'd they have? Laramie Tunzel at left tackle, multiple NFL guys on their defense and on that front, plus Laquan Treadwell at wide receiver. So Ole Miss, this is your year to be a playoff team. I firmly believe that. So, all right, that's going to wrap up the Texas versus the SEC this week. Last week for Texas to get ready for the SEC. Mississippi State next week, and the SEC schedule in full begins a week from Saturday. We can't wait for that. For CJ, I'm Gerry. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you again on Texas versus the SEC next week.